Hello, everybody, and welcome to Charts and Darts. Today is Monday, the 1st of June 2020. I'm the Oracle of Arlington, and today on the Australian Stock Exchange, we had a relatively weak start to the day, trading mostly in negative territory for the first few hours of trade. But as the day progressed, we managed to start to see that it turned around, and we actually closed at the best levels for the benchmark index. The ASX 200 closed up 63.5 points, or a little bit over 1%, to levels of 5,819 points. The close of trade for the week, and this being Monday, obviously the start of the week, also the beginning of the month, and the final month for our financial year here in Australia. There were plenty of themes and factors playing around on markets today, mostly based around China and some of the manufacturing data that came in a little bit better than expected for the month of May, which saw the sector in China expand slightly with expectations of a contraction, which is good news for Asian regions as a whole. Donald Trump late last week mentioned a press conference with China, and there were fears about measures being put in or issued around the trade deal. All seemed to pass by quite easily today with no real effect on markets. And with the recovery of this post-COVID recovery, investors seem to be a little bit more optimistic, with businesses slowly starting to get back to normal and with restrictions being lifted, which has seemed to fuel our markets gains over the past few months. 2 months of gains in April and May, 5 straight weeks of improvements for the ASX 200. As we dive into the charts, you can see here, we'll get on the weekly. So the ASX 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're pushing on quite well. And now we're into our 6-week. If we can continue up here, we'll have 6 weeks of straight gains. Going a little bit deeper down, we'll have a look on the daily. You can see after our massive sell-off, we had our first bounce. We pulled back down here to this level, retested back up at this 5,563 level. Then we came back down. We didn't quite make that same low, so we started to obviously be able to put in a bit of a trend, which we've managed to hold, and we're sticking on this green 20 moving average. From this cross here, you can see the green line drop below the red line, meaning the 20 drop below the 60. And as we continue to bleed down, we've sort of came back and found this level on our first bounce, pulled back, and we sort of started to set this uptrend to our first level of resistance, which is now turned into support. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, and we've come back, broken through on this candle here, and now we're clearly starting to move a little bit higher. Not to say that we can't come back, retest here, or even break below and find this trend line somewhere in this area, but right now it appears that the 20 and the 60 are going to cross in the next few days, and we should see a pump higher. If we can turn this level of support and resistance here at 5,922 into support, and then we should, if we break that level and close up here, we should definitely see the market start to move higher. As a whole, you can see here on the day we have the 200 in order from alphabetically at the moment. We can put them by percentage movers for the day. So our biggest movers from top to bottom: Austral, who received a contract, I believe, the other day; Adbury, so ABC; Bingo Industries, so a lot of these building and construction industries; Boral, another builder, who actually have had quite a nice move. This purple line here is a volume weighted moving average, so you can see as more volume has started to move in on these stocks, it's pushing, like now as the volume increases, it's really started to push this moving average higher than just a normal moving average based on the close of price. So we can leave that in. We'll keep going down. Fortescue Metals had a great day today. They're one of the best movers in the resources, 6%. Fletcher Building, another builder. As we go down, Flight Centre as well, they had a bit of a move. Obviously they've had a big jump in the past few days as restrictions have started to ease, and talk and searches on Google about travel and even travel within Australia have dramatically increased. As we go down, so St Barbara, Rio Tinto, another one of the miners. So these guys have been pushing along. Webjet as well, based off this reopening and the easing of restrictions based around travel and borders. Another resource company, New Farm. See, they're starting to move as well. You can see here it's putting this green cross down here, so these EMAs have crossed over and begun moving higher. What we excuse me, what we optimally want to see is price above the green, whilst the green is above the red, and both of these moving averages above the purple volume weighted moving average. This is a really strong sign to buy around or look for an entry position around these levels. And I mean, after this big sell-off, this is back last year in June, we sold off down to here really. So for a little over a year, 369 days, we were in this big downtrend. Then we started to reverse that trend, move back higher. There's that into October 2019. We had a bit of a pullback coming into the end of the year. November, pushed higher. We were kind of already in a downtrend before this big sell-off happened in March to take us down to our lows here. But the recovery, to where we are, yeah, 50% pullback from in the last 80 days, so 2.5 months, or a little bit over. As we continue down, CSR, another strong pullback, some big moves, and you can see as well here on the daily, these EMAs have crossed over. What's that, the 28th of May, we'll get onto the 12-hour EMA, 28th of May, 1, 2, 3, found this level in here and kind of made this support. We've bounced off it as we've started to cross over. Once again, the green is on top of the red, which is on top of these volume weighted moving average. Very strong sign, very bullish sign for CSR. This is strictly technical analysis, so we're not taking any fundamentals in right now. For our case of buy or sell, we're just trying to build a narrative based around what we're seeing technically on these charts. And again, 1, 2, 3, we've broken back above this 2, which would be in here. The way I do that, I go here, make sure we're on the 12-hour, come to here, put in a price, put one of these on, so we go 2, 12-hour. We now have a buy level in here, which you can see we've come back and we've bounced straight off with this little wick down here. Remembering these are log charts, so it's more to do with Bitcoin, I guess, but a lot of the time on the ASX as well, when we're looking at these larger time frames over a longer time, the difference between a linear and a log scale can be quite a lot, especially if you have any forms of trend lines that have been made. This isn't as great to see trending market as much, but it's just a good thing to be aware of. Log or linear. Log, linear. So we'll leave it in linear for now, just so we're going through on these closer, smaller time frames. Continuing down the left, Evolution Mining, which has had a great move. You can see that this volume weighted moving average is actually in between these two EMAs. It's still very bullish because basically where we were looking for an entry was somewhere around here, where price was above the green, above the red, whilst the red and the green were above the volume weighted moving average. But you can see the volume started to increase and pick up as the tradings increased, with the price going higher and higher. Perfect time to get in would have been somewhere down around here, these 411 levels. You'd be looking at, yeah, a little bit over 50% gains right now. Or if you were to have been lucky enough to have been buying before the big crash sort of on the 23rd back around these levels, yeah, you'll be looking at nearly a 90%, 88% gains to now. Continuing down the list, Origin Energy, another energy player. Look at these ones. So what I was saying before, these don't need to have crossed over for this move to start. So we can see volume was increasing as this purple line's going up, but the EMAs, the close prices, were already starting to make moves towards crossing over. So from down here to up here, this big move really pushed these guys quite wide apart. Now they've started to trade closer and closer. We could really start to see some big moves back up in these prices. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little bit of a pullback. Like, it nearly feels like the market needs to sell off a little bit to reconsolidate, find this, and create more of a reasonable gain as opposed to these exponential markets that just pump. We'll go back onto the daily just so we can keep it. Seeing there was quite a lot of selling yesterday that came in, but today it was just all bought back up with this engulfing candle. And we're starting to see, looking back here a little bit, this price gap down on the 6th of March from up here to down here. So usually you look to see these gaps get filled, so I wouldn't be surprised if price did end up making it back up here to these $7 or $6.76 levels, somewhere around here to fill this. There's been lots of talk about gaps lately in Bitcoin and other markets, cryptocurrencies and whatnot, but it's just interesting to always keep your eyes open to these things, because you can see there were gaps here, price came down, found its low here, but it came back up, filled this gap, and then dumped off. And even you can see here it was just a wick that sort of found that gap to close it. Then price came back down here, closed here for the day, and then we just started to sell off. What day was this? Yeah, this is the beginning of March. And then the big day down here, the 23rd, some stocks sort of fell to the 25th, and so around here is sort of where the majority of the blood on the streets was sort of found or seen. Continuing on, Silver Lake, another resource company pumping along, so you'd love to buy in down here. We've got the cross, green, red on top of the purple, and you can see the volume. See this massive volume candle here? And look at this big pump in the purple moving average. So right there you can see, as opposed to these days where they're just step, this was a really big push. As volume starts to increase relatively to the price movement, you can see there's not as much volume coming in here, but we're starting to see these decent little steps as we come into the price. We have this big pullback as well here on this day in the red. So this was volume, but it was volume to the downside, and it's still up above the 60 moving average. So we're still in the trade. If we're in the trade from down here, we'd still be holding on and waiting for these guys to come closer, the 60 and the 20. And when they do look to cross, they'll put in a red cross like this one. You can't really see here, or this red cross here. You see this further up. The Australian Stock Exchange is mostly made up of banks and resource companies, so a lot of the time you'll see banks go down and resource companies pump up and keep continuing on pushing higher as money moves out of one and into another. But yeah, the banks have been quite strong as well the last couple of days. Here's another gap. Like, you look at this one and you think, okay, see how price pumped up here? There's sort of a gap here. We've put in this red candle, so there was a lot of selling and buying up to this level, and then it just dumped off. But then we came to here, and again, this is on the daily, but we've put this gap in here, and I wouldn't expect price to come back down and necessarily fill this gap or find these levels, but anything's possible, and especially as these are really moving in this order. This has come back in between the 60 and the 20. This is really looking like that it should be coming close. There'll be a sell somewhere up here, maybe pull back and have a retracement to these excuse me, $1.80 levels somewhere around here. You can see we've got a high here, we kind of got the low here. Put on here. Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised that $1.80 level, if we did come back down, this would be a great area to look to be able to go long. That's if price does manage to come back down here. We'll continue going down the list. IGO not really there, but you can see on the daily we have put this cross in. Go to the 12 hour. Cross is here. We're sort of gapped up, so there's a little bit of a jump in price here, but we've definitely got our indicator to say the cross is in. Price is above this volume weighted moving average, so we could expect to see a lot of volume move in as price does get higher. These two guys expand out, green on the top, red on the bottom, and then the purple starts to move up in between the two of them, like it's done back here. Sorry, I'm using a trackpad. So we can see we put the cross in here. Purple's below the red, below the green. The green's on top of the red, and then we start to really pump. We see the volume move in. This EMA, the VWMA, volume weighted moving average, moves in between these two and continues higher. At no time we've seen a red cross to indicate that these are going to have crossed to say to get out until up here. So really we're looking at this trade from somewhere down around here to find a level. Even if we got on the close here, I mean there's a 20% trade there. It's 162 days, but if you saw these levels up here, maybe you would have had another reason to get out. Maybe you see this level up here, so we click down here, we have a double top, so maybe this would have been saying look to either halve a position or get out, with the idea of buying back in, possibly down around these levels for this move here. Just interesting, this dotted line runs right through the middle of this gap up here, and we quite quickly came back down, found this level, and then broke through it to start this downtrend that continued on and then into March with this big sell-off down to the 23rd to the 25th around here. Moving up, so right now that's a no from me. I mean, you could get in there if you're looking to have a play. A lot of this is dependent on market as well. Like, this is technical. If sentiment around the markets for whatever reason was to sell off what's going on in America, maybe we just never know. Down here you can see there's a little bit of news, so you can see the date. So May the 14th, reshorted ORG at 721, covered at 692. Some guy at stocks twist, but we'll leave that for the fundamentals. We're just here to look at the technical analysis of each of these markets and what the candles and charts are telling us. Right now very positive, but if you were looking to possibly trade the stock, VMA 60-20 crossing, and even if, let's just go down, let's jump on a 4 hour and just see how it's being traded. Okay, so we can sort of see from down here. I'll make this white. We can see there was a level in here, tested once, tested twice, tested a third time, came back down, had a bit of play around here, but you can see this volume weighted moving average has come back down and then got below both these EMAs before this pump, and then we had this gap up, and then as soon as the volume started to move in, it went from being below to starting to follow this 60 and then break above and become in between the two moving averages. Quite a phenomenal day on here. So 3% move today on this last candle right at the end of trade for the day. There was a big drop in the middle as well. Jump back on the daily, zoom out a little bit, we'll continue down. Any of these green ones, just as to let you know if I do talk about them, any green icons do mean that I have a position currently held in these stocks. So this is a Vita Health, which is a medical company. We can see the volume weighted moving average as it was selling, so it's really starting to sell off below. We're now below here, so we can see our EMAs aren't in the correct order, being the red on top and the green on the bottom. So we want the green on top, the red on the bottom, but we want them both to remain above this purple moving average, the volume weighted moving average. And we can see I really have strong hopes for this company. I do think that they have some great technology that they're coming out with, and the research they're doing is really going to change a lot of people's lives if they're able to do what they say they're aiming to do. Continuing on, mineral resources, great stock. I mean, same deal. If you're to buy it down here, here's the cross, here's the moving average on the bottom. These two are in the right order. As you can see, as volume stepped in, it started to come and break above this 60 and stay in between these two. You could have even really, let's just have a look at this. So this is an RSI with a 50, anywhere up over here, we're getting over. Anywhere under here, we're going over. So if we're down here, we're going oversold. So you kind of want to be looking to buy anywhere down here. And if you see any of these come up here, we might see this push up once more up here and put in either a red signal or a blue signal indicating a pivot or a sell point. Moving along, BHP, which you can see is another one of my portfolio. I'm really impressed with the way that this company has recovered. They have a lot of staff. So here, I think we can even go down here. We pull this up. Employees. Oh, it doesn't actually tell you, but usually you can see a lot of companies' employees numbers down here. If you click more, operating market, see, so a lot of these. Yeah, number of employees. They employ a lot of people around the world. So with all this COVID stuff, they've done really well in managing staff on different sites, staff in admin, in corporate offices, and keeping the company going. Purple on the bottom, the red is underneath the green, and we're just shooting higher. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see BHP back at these 37, 38 levels, back up around here. A few gaps as we've come down. We've retested back to this level here, and then we sold off. Another big gap here. Just as an example, let's look here. We have this dip down to here, big day, 13th. We had this little move up, little move here, then we gapped up here. We came back up. We had to fill this gap nearly, which was this candle here with this little wick down, this wick down here as well, like reaffirm that it closed this gap. And then we've just started to move progressively higher. There's a gap here. There's a few gaps throughout, so there's no guarantees in these markets, but if we were to pull back down and find this moving average again before we push up towards the $40 level, I would not be surprised. But we've got the green cross, the green and the red are above the purple. Very bullish signs. Harvey Norman, these guys have done quite well as well through all of this pandemic, especially as a retailer. Not heavily focused online either, which they've started to move, like many other businesses. A lot of selling came in here volume wise the other day, last week, and we seem to be pushing higher. Resolute 90, another miner, pump down here, watch the volume will start to increase. This will start pushing higher. If we get back up to these levels here, what are we looking at? $1.26, which is kind of the same level back on here. So we can then move this back to here. $1.26, bang on. And this was obviously at the end of last year with this massive boom, pull back down here. And like, look, we can see it here. The time to buy would have been exactly here where this purple, so one of these candles here really, 1, 2, 3. We got the cross. We're above the red. The red's above the purple. And then we've just taken off. So let's go here from the close. I mean, there's 70, just under shy of 70%. Not saying that you'd sell every time up here. We'd kind of be waiting for these levels over here. If we'll follow the rules exactly for our last bit of the sale. But there's still 13%. It is 97 days, so just shy of 100 days, but do 13% a couple of times a year and you'll be beating the market. Now we've come back down. You can see the bottom of this level is basically where we are right now, like it is. Tested above, wicked out. See these wicks up here. This is a whole lot of shootery. Bang, 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 bang. Come back up. We put this in here as a final test before we dumped off. And now we're starting to head back up into these regions or these areas. Bullish, bullish, bullish. This should just continue higher. CSL, as you can see, there's another green one in here. Just to let you know that I do own this stock. It's interesting as well. I really like TradingView in this part, so it shows you the day's range and where it's traded, and obviously at the end of the day it was still trading at its highs or just below. And we can see a 52-week range, so we're still trading above the halfway point of its yearly bottom and top. It does have a sell, so technically this is in a sell at the moment, and I guess this is the opposite side to looking for a buy. We have the cross, which is red. We have the purple volume on top. Then we have the red. Then we have the green. So this is very bearish technically right now. I own it as an investment, not as a trading stock. So I'm not looking at getting out. But next time it flips and it turns around and puts in a green cross, I might look to be either adding on or increasing the weight of my position in there, because this is interesting. This double top up here, we'll come back, we could find a level maybe down around here, 273, and we might look to push higher because yeah, these didn't quite double bottom, but they're sort of in this range at the moment. Continuing on, Star Entertainment, pokies, I mean, the casino isn't opening back up with pokies and all the gaming facilities, but they are starting to allow invites in, so regular high rollers. But as you can see, we haven't put the cross in yet, but they're both above this purple. As soon as this green gets on top of the red, we could really start to see a move in this. And it's kind of like the next guy down here, which is Aristocrat, and I think it's in buy at the moment. It's trading well at the top of its daily range, so it just keeps pushing higher every day. It opened down here, it closed up here. It opened on the low, it closed on the high. It's about to cross, like, this is really, really bullish to me. Aristocrat Leisure. Continuing down, AMP, I mean, it's sort of doing the same thing here. I don't know what your thoughts are personally on some of these companies, but you can see it was kind of in a downtrend in this last bit. It had a little bit of a pump here, but then when it sold off, everything sort of sold off here, but it was very sideways in this market as well. Another interesting thing is this bit here, there's a gap down here, and it couldn't quite get high enough to fill that gap, which would have been, call it 213.5, and it got here to 207.5, so it still had that little bit at the top and it couldn't quite do it. So I don't know, I don't really like the stock to begin with, but you can see the volume sells off when price is going up and volume's going down. No, it's not orange, so it's not in my watch list. It's still staying down. Some of these gold road resources, I mean, this is really bullish as well. You look back down here, jump, green, red, volume picked up, and we can see it's moved in. Now we're sort of in this no man's land, so if you're not in, it's very hard to construct a buy thesis. You can see here there was a gap up, it came back, filled this gap here, basically a little bit below, but on the nose, call it. Yeah, a little bit down. Very bullish with gold prices, obviously. But there was a lot of selling when it was starting to get up here, so any gold and gold stocks can be very volatile. Another one, Newcrest Mining. We got the cross, got the green above. So yeah, any of these candles around here would have been probably your buy on this day or this day. Now we're just starting to move higher. CIMIC. I'll just go back to that for a second. You can see same, it's about to cross. It's so many of these are setting up on the daily. Or I mainly use the 12-hour and the 4-hour. 4-hour more to find an entry and to see that trend is continuing. But if you look here on the 29th of April, go back onto the daily, find April 29, anywhere buying around here would have been very validated just based on my trading style and strategy. 30% to there, to where we are today, 25, so that's a quarter of your investment increased. Sky City, another entertainment group. Northern Star, another resources. Like, look at this, like this is screaming. We're nearly up at support. I'll nearly put that, instead of having that as a buy there, which is what that means, I'll put this here as like a zigzag high on the daily. So yeah, you can see these two were definitely, but it was interesting as well, like this as, let's go a little bit higher just so we have a bit of a idea of when these did cross. It was all the way back down here on the weekly, imagine. 2,310 days, you've just made 1,480%. There were definitely pullbacks, but I mean, if you got down here and your thesis was on the weekly, we buy when these crosses, we sell when these cross over, you're still going to be waiting a little while, I would imagine, for price to come anywhere back down to these levels for these to cross back over and be sitting on quite a healthy gain. Wally, I mean, coming back down here again, these haven't quite had the same bounce. Like, I'll get it off for weekly just so we stay the same. Very erratic movements, kind of all over the place. In the market, it's very choppy. I don't like trading that. Saracen, another one, still flying. Get in down here, in here even, any of these. And you would have had these pullbacks. You can see there's a few gaps in here. Gap here, it's come down, closed it. There's a gap here, came back down, closed it. Gap here, came back down, closed it. Now it nearly looks like it's filled a lot of these gaps, so it could be setting up to just continue going higher as markets move on. I mean, this is a 200, so we could keep, I was just going to go through all the positive movers today, but you can see how much green there is on the market today. There's a few more coming down here. Tabcorp, BVS. So what I'll do, I'll continue down here. Real estate, I mean, we on Shakespeare. This is a company that I've been quite bullish on from last year. Where was it? Yeah, around here last year. So about a year ago, a little bit less than a year ago. June. So we're right here, 1 year ago. I was really starting to see this company, but then they did pull back. Look, they had some massive moves on the way up, but then earlier on in the year, so December here, January 2020, sideways, boom. Saul Patterson's. Here, what I'll do, I won't go through everyone, so what I'll do, I'll just find the other orange listed watch list stocks that I've got on here. So JB Hi-Fi, this is looking quite good as well. And I mean, as a retail stock, we had the cross back here, it came back down, price found this 20, whilst the 20 was on top of the 60. It was actually sitting on the 60 as well, so you can see that wick down to the 60 right on it there, and we started to move higher. Any of the buyers here saying, I mean, you could have bought in here, you could have bought in here, maybe around this level here. So we're already up 8%, but I do feel now that this is going to start to possibly trend higher as the market moves. If the ASX continues doing what it's been doing, I could quite easily see the stock moving back up into these levels around here. 39, somewhere up here. Going down, this is one that I've been quite interested in. Same reasons. Got this cross. These are above the volume weighted moving average. You can see it started going a little bit sideways here, so I'm not sure if to wait for these to pull back, cross over, come back down, see how the volume plays out, because you can see it sort of had these movements as it's been going higher. We've been pushing up. We came up here to the final push, but as we started to have a volume decrease, price has really gone sideways. So unless we see this volume step back in, I could see the continuation of going sideways for a little bit longer. Maybe we come back down, test these low threes, and then start to push on. Another interesting one to put on here would be bang and bang. So we have a 50 moving average, which we can see is now below the 200 moving average, which is really, this is kind of saying it's in a downtrend at the moment. So when the 50 is below the 200, it's usually pushing towards the downside. So I wouldn't be surprised if, like I said, we see price come back here, the 50 start to move up, the 200 start to flatten out, and then we start to see maybe a push up at the beginning of July, 1st of July, or somewhere in the first couple of weeks of July. S32, I don't know why. I mean, this is one resource company that I've never really, I have owned it in the past, sort of when they first IPO'd way back when. Yeah, around here. So it was late 2016. So yeah, basically where we are now, but 4 years ago. And we started to see this move, and you can see before here there was no 50-day moving average because it hadn't been around for 50 days yet. And then this orange line has started. So if we go here and we go backwards to here, so yeah, 50 weeks, sorry, so if we jump on here and go into the daily. You can see here, so we had this orange moving average down here. Here's the first 50 days of this stock being in existence. Here to here. And then as we've started to go down, we've come up and we've got 200 moving average. And then you can see once the 50 is on top of the 200, it really is bullish. We come back down, 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 down. We cross over. These go negative, so it's already crossed by, or price has already been going down by this time. These are crossed. In very short time, they stayed below, the 50 stayed below the 200. 200 got back above for a short time. Sorry, 50 got above the 200 for a short time. And then when the 200 is on top of the 50, it's a very strong downtrend. And you can see we've come down sort of. It's hard to say if this is a sort of an accumulation area too, so you could nearly say somewhere down here, if we put that level in, and maybe like this level here, so somewhere in here could be a big accumulation zone. But it's been going, price has been going sideways for a very long time, and even with this big sell-off in the last couple of months, it really hasn't done a lot to prove itself. So I'm going to put this back to being off my watch list. Zero, this is another one. I might even put it as an orange because it was on my watch list. Back up in these 80s. I mean, we were looking at back down here in these $70. Down here, you can see these two are on top. $76, but now as the volume started to push in, we're coming back up to these levels of nearly where we were before the market sold off, global markets sold off. Another resource company doing really well. Get in here, see the 50 starting to push up towards the 200, and this volume's right in the middle. If it continues doing what it's been doing, it'll be very easily to see these companies start to move back up into these levels. 620, 670. So petroleum, obviously sell off with the oil price. There's a big gap here. We could easily see it come back up in this $26 level and start to go sideways maybe from up there. Here's another one. I don't know a lot about this company, but I've been seeing a lot of it on the market lately. Obviously you can see these are above. The 50 is still below the 200, which is a downtrend, but they seems to be bouncing around this. See how it's come up, found this red line here. Now I'll take the 50 out. So found this 200 moving average, this red line. As volumes picked up, it's come back up into the middle here. So I mean, it's not really a buy. It doesn't look quite the same as a number of the other setups, so I might just put that back to red. As I said, the banks, Westpac's been doing pretty good, NAB's been doing pretty good. Look how identical they nearly look to one another. Coles, alright, so here's another one. This one the other day, this is kind of preferred. I'm going to put the 50 back on here for a second. Dump. So we can see how price has been riding on this 50 the whole time it's been above the 200. Nope. Nope. Very bullish. And you can see obviously during March, here's a big pullback days. But we have to remember as well, whilst all these other companies were bleeding out, Coles was obviously putting in some of the biggest numbers of buyers with a lot of this panic buying. But you can see it's sort of coming back, but it could hold this level and continue going higher. I'm just interested in this EMA on the daily. We're still in a red downtrend, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. If it holds above this 200, continues up here, this 50 starts to push higher, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see these levels. We close this gap, we're back at 1660, 65, and then maybe we start to even push up to these levels. Here's 1720. Not financial advice, all educational, but this is just how I look at a lot of markets. Another interesting indicator to use is an Ichimoku. This is actually an enhanced one. It's more for cryptocurrencies. So if we jump on this one, we can see we've got this really strong red cloud coming at the moment. So I wouldn't be surprised if we sort of come to these levels, bounce off the bottom here before we start to see the cloud flip over and turn into what could be a new green cloud as we start moving out or up. There's something to watch out for. Look at all this green on the market. Green. CBA, another positive for these banks. You can see we're starting to put this green cloud out here. So we found the 50. We could bounce around here for a little bit, move out into this green, call it the beginning of the new financial year next year. This is going on a little bit, so I'm not going to keep just going through all these, but you can see basically we've come down to the bottom of all these movers for today. Another one's Invocare, as these restrictions are loosening up or easing off a little bit. Funerals can start to have more people. They're also looking at innovating in a number of new ways for funerals, so it'll be interesting to see Zoom and maybe these ways of having funerals being held without having to have everybody necessarily in the same place at one time. I mean, they've been doing it for a little bit, but it could really start to have a new way of these industries doing some of the things. This is another interesting one. Look at this, Ramsey Healthcare, really big green cloud coming out. We've got the cross. We're above the volume weighted moving average. And I'm just going to take these Ichimoku out. Bullish, 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 bullish. As soon as this 50 gets back above here, once these two start to convene or get closer to one another, I could really see a move on that too. Obviously this is in the red for today. Coming down, coming down. WiseTech, this has been a little winner. Above, see the volume starting to step in, but price has really pulled back from this high. Was it 22.71 or whatever it was the other day? Above the 50. Put this cross in. I might take that 50 and the 20 and the 20 off. Seeing as volume steps in, these candles on these wicks on these lines on the volume weighted moving average obviously are the big moves when the big volume steps in, or bigger volume. Some more consistent on the way up. Let's go down IAG, which is a bit of a Polynovo. This has been on watch list for ages. Buy around here, it's come back. And this is now at the bottom, so our biggest losers for today, Platinum Asset Management, but same deal, like you can sort of see it's coming into this range here, like it's kind of like this could be even pulling back to be in an area to be a buy zone, but whether it can continue having the momentum to push higher. Let's go here, let's just go here. Comes around here, finds support, comes back up. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like even the other day, Nearmap, this was one of the biggest performers the other day. Look, it gapped up here, had a massive, but it's come back and pulled back into this range. I wouldn't be surprised it comes back down here. We find this level, $1.97. Volume steps in, bang, off we go. We continue higher and basically, like, see this gap here? Look at that. $2.43. So I wouldn't be surprised if we come back down, find these levels, push back to 243. This volume weighted moving average gets in between the two EMAs, and basically we redo what happened right around here. Well, this isn't quite as clear because it had already crossed and then it came back and fluffed around for a little bit, but in here somewhere, this is on top, this is below, this is on the bottom, so anywhere from here onwards is kind of like a buy. Let's just put this here. You can see we've got this level through here. Would you have bought Nearmap at $1.58? Guess what? You could have bought it back again after all this time, and it very easily. It's nearly, you can nearly even put it onto this top of this zigzag right here. So this is sort of level. If I pull back $1.62. You're already up 37%. So these markets are looking very interesting at the moment. None of this is obviously financial advice, but I could see. Yeah, we'll just jump back on the XJ quickly. I could see our market have a few. It's all very dependent on what happens with American stuff, but with the futures pushing the way they have, we kind of have this level here as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bit of support from here. And we start to range between this 57.55 and 59.22 sort of level. mean, we could break below and sort of have some wicks that come back around here, but I wouldn't be surprised. We see some play around here, we push up, then we start to come here, we flip this, and then we start to move above up into these 6,000 ranges, which is just here, just above. Anyway, that's all for today. I'll be with you again tomorrow, so hopefully we have another day of movement so we can go through some of these stocks and see if we can pick out some of these winners. Charts and darts, have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.